Hi, my name's Andy Freeman and this is this week's Shhh. And this week we're thinking about the theme of me. I want to begin with a poem. This is by Emily Dickinson. And this is just the first verse and it goes like this. Hope is a thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without words and never stops at all. Hope is a thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without words and never stops at all. I'm back in my garden this week doing shush because rules have changed again. Working from home is now the preferred thing. A quarter of the population are now in some form of restrictions or lockdown. All of us have had to change again, and so I wonder how you're feeling. In our work we've sensed quite a lot of tiredness, frustration, a lack of energy as a long winter stretches out in front of us, and yet there's always hope. There's always something that can kindle in us, something that enables us to get up again and keep going, and the amazing thing about human beings so often is that they do exactly that. I read a really interesting article this week about Norway and about people who have to endure long nights of almost entire darkness over the winter, and how you can take two approaches to it. One is you can say, well, that's going to happen, and the gloom almost of the darkness begins to overcome you. The other one is begin to see the benefits, the positive things of winter, the snugness of home, the positives of the season as we celebrate different things, the lights. And you can find a positive thing in all of it. Now that may be wishful thinking, that may well be positive psychology, kind of gone a little bit derailed. But at the heart of it is hope. That building hope and allowing hope to fly is something that enables us to move forward. So I want to begin with a simple question. What hopes do you have today? And I'm going to give some space and some music and going to ask you just to reflect. What hope do I have today? I'll read the poem one more time and then we'll give you some space. Hope is a thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without words and never stops at all. What hope do you have today? I always like doing shush outside in my garden because it takes in everything that's going on in the world. So around me there's someone fitting windows in a house at the other end. There's a family out in their garden. Just the other side of my house is Cowlishaw Road, busy traffic. And all of these things, you'll hear them as this meditation goes on. And if we're going to think about the subject of me and myself, we immediately have to realize that we don't ever do that in a vacuum. To think of me is always to think about me surrounded by others. There's an African phrase, proverb saying, Ubuntu, I am because we are. that I never exist outside of some element of community and relationship. So if we think of that classic saying from Shakespeare, to thine own self be true, to be true to thine own self needs other people. So I like that there's noise and background and life happening around this little video, because it reminds us that we're never isolated or alone, even when we feel we are. And for many of us, this season might be feeling like another period of isolation. But there are people around you. Remember in March, as community groups got going, people checked up on people who were self-isolating, as this thing hit us that we weren't prepared for. So much coming together and community. The same can happen today. But as well, there'll be people around you, family, friends, loved ones, people you care about, who enable you to be who you are. So just at the start of this session, as we think about ourselves, as we think about me, I'd like to encourage you just to take a moment to be grateful for those around you. And we'll just let the sounds of everyday life happen as a backdrop to that, and give you some space to reflect. Who do you want to be grateful for today? Those people who help you be you. We've been thinking a lot about the question, how are you? And to think about yourself, to think about me in that feels important. And it involves an interesting relationship that we have with ourselves, and we've touched on this over these past few weeks, is how do we feel about ourselves? Brené Brown said this: love is not something we give or we get, it is something that we nurture and grow. A connection that only can be cultivated by two people when it exists with each one of them. We can only love ourselves as much as we love others. Brennan Manning put it another way: if I am estranged from myself, I am likewise a stranger to others. So what we give out of ourselves, what we shine out of ourselves, is often an indication of what's going on inside of ourselves. Think of it like this. It's a mirror. As I look at myself, what do I see? We have the outward. There's something of the inward will come through, maybe our eyes, maybe our facial expressions, the way we act to others. I found it interesting as I've gone around a lot more wearing a mask, that it's harder to express those unsaid things as we communicate through a smile, a look. We lose something. So our outward self shows something of our inward self. But this is also an illusion. Inside of me are things that only I know about. And I see all of that. And then I take that honest inward view of myself and I compare it to the outward expression of someone else. So this is also an illusion. What's more interesting to look at is that sense of how we treat others and how we act towards others is a good indication of how we think about ourselves. Brené Brown is saying the same thing. To truly love someone else means that love first has to exist in ourselves. Or for Brennan Manning, if we're disconnected from ourselves, it's quite hard to be connected to somebody else. So nurturing good relationships is a good thing for you. It will help you to love. But also nurturing a sense of self, of identity, is also really helpful. And we're touching on things that we use in our well-being triangle that you may have come across before. That my well-being is wrapped up with a good sense of self, but also with a sense of others, connections, authentic relationships. And then the third thing we draw on is a sense of the other, that there's something outside of ourselves, something bigger, wonder, awe, beauty, spirituality maybe, that helps us. So here's the thing, to ask how am I is a 3-dimensional question. It requires me to look into myself honestly, to look into the mirror of my own self and to say, how do I feel? And to do that with love and appreciation of ourselves. You're alright, and it's okay to feel appreciative of who you are. Yeah, you have faults, you have flaws, but that's not the point. The point is to say, I have some love that I'm nurturing for my own self and understanding of my own self. And then secondly, the second dimension is that connection with others that we touched on at the start, that I am something because of other people. And the third thing is this, that there is a sense of other that knits us together, that builds our well-being, something that we can't quite put our finger on, that doesn't show up in an X-ray, but that moves us in ways, that connects us in ways. And nurturing that is important too, in whatever way feels appropriate to you. And I want to give some space now to do that. I'm going to play some music, put some images up, and I'd like you just to feel a sense of yourself, to really begin to put your finger on, well, who am I? How am I doing? And allow a little bit like a mirror to your insides, to your soul, to your mind, to your emotions, whatever you understand by those words. And allow yourself some self-appreciation in those 3 dimensions. We'll put some music on. Just take some space. Appreciate who you are. Ask how you're doing. Look inside. See what you can see. So that's Shhh. We're going to be back again next week with another 15 minutes of space to breathe, but in the meantime, take care of yourself, look after yourself, look after those you care about, and we'll see you again really soon. Take care. Bye-bye.